Signal Sciences is the industry's first web protection platform that works in any cloud, any container, any platform as a service, and any modern application architecture. The Signal Sciences web protection platform can be deployed in next-generation WAF, RASP, or reverse proxy modes, giving customers ultimate flexibility and coverage. Protect your web applications with Signal Sciences web protection platform. Signal Sciences, protecting applications, connecting teams. For more information, check them out at signalsciences.com/PSW. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/ASW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter.
Sorry, I almost forgot to unmute myself there. Welcome back, everyone, to Application Security Weekly, the news for the week of August 5th. James, any stories you wanted to jump to at the start?
Well, I love talking about the serverless stuff, so we can hop into that, or I'm game for whatever.
Yeah, so there was a really great article, story number 3 under If You Build It, They Will Come, that talks about serverless security. And in fact, we are going to have the author of this article on in a future episode. So let me actually just jump to it in my show notes here. So let me see.
While you're doing that,
go ahead.
I know this guy Tom, and we had him on the Signal Sciences. We do the Modern Security series, and so we were having a conversation about serverless security. So it's great. I think this article's spot on. He talks about kind of the AWS shared responsibility model, where we move our concerns for how we're doing security in a serverless world, and I think we're going to see kind of the coming of age of application security. So even though application security has been with us for a while and has been really important, as we continue to shed off stuff lower down the stack, we're going to continue to see application security be the prime vector for a lot of attacks, kind of over the next decade, I'd say.
One of the things he points out as well in his article is he actually links to this thing called the Serverless Security Top 10, which I was kind of interested in because I had never heard of it before. But it talks about things like, function event data injection, right? So getting away from the traditional application security problems of, SQL injection. Now you've got event data injection, which that was interesting and new to me because I'm not super familiar with serverless. I'm just starting to get into it a little bit. And to that end, it talks a lot about a number of different things where it's extrapolating away effectively or abstracting from the problems that you traditionally have with, vulnerability management down to you have to look at libraries, you have to look at other things involved in your development process, which I thought it was spot on. I'm actually really excited to have Tom on the show. I think it's in a few weeks at this point, but I met him at a DEF CON 617 meetup in Boston at one point, and we just hit it off. So this is a great article in general, and I'd highly recommend our readers go and check it out because it is a little bit long. But hey, if you're on a plane out to Vegas, for example, worth picking up some reading. Any other highlights from the article that you wanted to touch on before we jump to something else?
Yeah, well, one of the things Tom and I talked about when we did our webcast thing was the fact that like a lot of people assume that because you're doing serverless, like you're automatically secure, and especially at the application layer, there's a lot of misconceptions about how the API gateway, like for example, like in Amazon does, and so like that an event injection thing, that's a great example of that. And one of the projects that I wrote, I sort of kind of took the WebGoat model for building an insecure thing, and I wrote this thing called LambHack. And LambHack is a vulnerable Lambda service that runs, and you can do command injection into it. And so we can actually run OS commands via URI strings. So it was just a proof of concept, just to show like application security is still a significant problem. Just because we've abstracted certain parts of our stack doesn't mean that we can ignore kind of the parts that we're dealing with. Now, the great part is like serverless security really puts the onus on the developer to secure the code that you wrote, and no, you don't have to worry. Like you don't have to think so much about shell shock or Heartbleed or any of that kind of stuff, but you end up thinking about like, I left some cross-site scripting in my app, and I'm really great at developing developing lots of bugs in my code. So like this is good for me as a reminder to do this. So writing a vulnerable application was super easy for me, Keith. You have no idea. I was like, oh sweet, I can make this hackable. So anyways, it was a lot of fun.
I was going to say, it sounds like you should be giving some trainings at, some major industry conferences, because in my experience, writing a vulnerable app that is vulnerable in just the right way and like won't break entirely when you actually exploit it is hard. So maybe, innate talent that you just didn't know you had.
It's like I can write bad code for a living. So yeah, it's great.
Paul, I think would agree with you. I could see you guys at a future future Blackhat or DerbyCon training, just, vulnerable web applications. That, or people can, give you a call and say, hey, we need a vulnerable web app for the training we're giving, and just do consulting time. Speaking of vulnerable web apps, by the way, I wanted to jump to story number 1 under bugs, breaches, and more, because in this article specifically, React patched a server-side vulnerability that it sounds like, from reading through the article, was not all that easy to put yourself into this bad state, because it was only affecting server-side rendered React applications, and it had a very specific pattern that it calls out about the way that you can kind of spread props inside of an element. And so it basically would lead to things like cross-site scripting being inserted right into that element. And then you now have cross-site scripting in your DOM, which is just really bad. But at the same time, in my mind, it's like, yeah, the whole spread of props is pretty normal inside of JavaScript, especially with ES6. So this seemed interesting to me that it existed, and I'm glad that they found it. But what were your thoughts on it? Have you done any React development at all? You're muted, James.
Oh, that's a rookie move right there. No, I haven't done very much React myself, so I was actually throwing it back to you. So there you go. Sorry for that.
It's all good. It's funny. I've been sitting on a project that I'm starting to work on as well. And people that go and look at my GitHub will see I've got 29 commits today alone. And it's because I keep going back and forth between whether or not I want to use React or Vue. And so I keep like tearing one down and starting another one. I'm like, no, I probably should. Eventually, I'll learn React, because you've got React Native and you've got all these other things you should do. But I don't know. I'm a Vue fanboy, and I'm not very good at JavaScript. So yeah, I'm torn, other than I've seen this, and I've seen other articles of people kind of railing on React, and I'm like, security, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, I don't know. But hey, at least they're patching stuff pretty quickly. Hopefully, everybody rolls out to all of the latest 16.01. I think they've got a few for every kind of intermediary version as well. So if you're on 16.3, you need to go to 16.3.2, 16.4 to 16.4.1, and so on. So they've got minor patches out for all of this, which is pretty awesome that they rolled that out. What other stories did you want to talk about, James?
Okay, let's see. Let's go back here. All right. So I wanted to ask you about this one. Hacking tutorials. What do you think about that? Like, YouTube is saying they're illegal to post?
Yeah, this was really kind of weird, because they go back and forth with YouTube on how many people are actually going out and monitoring these as admins versus the bots that are just kind of rolling through. And so the article itself actually comes from a person by the name of Dale Ruane, who is the person interviewed. So this is actually produced by Portswigger. And they talk about how they basically were doing black hat ethical hacking videos to help people learn how to do security practice stuff, right? Whether it's damn vulnerable web app, or the lamb application that you made, damn vulnerable lamb chop, or whatever we want to call it at this point.
Yeah, lamb hack. Lamb hack is the name.
Lamb hack. Thank you.
Yeah.
So hacking the lamb. Got it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, for this, it's interesting, because it sounds like, from reading the article, that if you're a major brand, right? If you're a company, say you're Pulse Security Weekly, or say you're, I don't know, Bugcrowd is a good example of this, right? Like, there are security videos that are being produced by well-known companies, whether it's webinars, for example. So I'm sure Signal Sciences has probably got a few of these yourselves, that teach people, quote unquote, how to hack. But those don't get taken down because they're fairly well-known brands, and maybe this is part of the security industry. I'm torn on this, though, honestly, because the best way to learn in a lot of ways is to teach. And one of the greatest ways to teach and build your own brand as an individual is to do YouTube videos. I mean, our podcast is going to be on YouTube here in, a few hours or a few days, right? So it's one of those things that I'm split, because I think that they have a really hard mission of censoring the right things for the right reasons. But I don't know that hacking is one of those things that they really should be censoring, considering how readily available it is on the internet, right? Like if I don't go to YouTube, I can go anywhere else to get it. So I don't know. I feel like this is an availability problem more than anything. Maybe a penny wise and a dollar foolish. What are your thoughts on it, James?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on kind of from the bug crowd angle, and where when people are trying to teach themselves anything, YouTube is a great resource, and to me, censorship, especially in this type of activity, it is a very fine line to walk, and I do feel like we've come a long way as an industry, because like you can recall the days of just having some security tools on your system was like, oh, you're a hacker, you're doing something illegal or whatever, right? I've worked at companies where you can't have Metasploit or whatever installed on your system, and you're in trouble with the man, right, at that point. But I feel like that's where YouTube draws the line here. That's questionable, and it gets back to, I actually think we could jump straight into the one under food for thought. New open source effort to the legal making reporting security bugs like safer for people, and like give them the ability to report that. What are your thoughts on that? I know like those kind of in my mind blend together.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And in fact, people trying to get into bug bounties, to get into the security space and build a brand for themselves, it's a good way to legally do that without getting into trouble. As you pointed out, there are still probably some companies out there that say, what do you mean you want a Kali Linux VM? What are you going to do, hack us? It's like, why, yes, I am. That's like my job. I'm in security. But story number 2 that you mentioned under food for thought is disclose.io. So this is a new open source effort put together by Amit Alazari. So she has spoken at Blackhat. I think she also spoke out at B-Sides, or not Blackhat, excuse me. She spoke at B-Sides Las Vegas last year. She's also spoken at B-Sides San Francisco. Some would know her as the younger sister to Karen Elazari, who's somewhat famous for her TED Talk on how hackers are the immune system of the internet. But bug crowds, specifically Casey Ellis, the founder and CTO, as well as Amit, have basically put together this idea or this concept around standardizing the legal framework and language for bug bounty hunters so that they don't run afoul of all sorts of different things like perhaps Wassenaar or CFAA or safe harbor violations, etc., for simply trying to do the right thing. So I thought that this is a really great idea, considering that bug bounties are starting to take off as a general practice. And to this end, it sounds like they're off to a really great start. Did you get a chance to check out the site or read any of the article at all, James?
Make sure. Yeah, and it looks promising to me to add that sort of legal, kind of a legal backing for folks to be able to participate in this. Like, and to me, that's always been the struggle when you're doing these bug crowd things or any sort of ways where you're involving other people to do testing or like hacking against your application. And I feel like this is a good step. And I don't know. I think we can. I don't know. Let me ask you this. Do you think that we are going to be able to get in front of the legal ramifications of this that's before it's enforced to us? This is sort of us bootstrapping some legal protection for ourselves. But what about when the government mandates some sort of either legal requirements or restrictions? Are we going to get in front of this, or does it sort of seem like the regulations are coming no matter what?
So believe it or not, my kind of gut feeling on this is that, and we haven't seen any like really major CFAA violation prosecutions, excuse me, Freudian slip. We haven't seen really any of those come about, except the only one that stands out in my mind is, I'm forgetting his name now, the supposed malware author of WannaCry. God, why am I forgetting his handle? People are probably yelling it out to me right now. He's the cat with glasses on Twitter. Malware. Why can't I remember his name? In any event, there's that one FBI investigation going on right now for the British citizen who's now stuck in the U.S. So in any event, I think that that's probably the only one that I really know about, though. To be honest with you, I mean, for the most part, it seems like the federal government is fairly allowing of this, because I think that companies are demanding it, and it's almost like any sort of regulation that happens from the government at this point is just too late, because there are so many companies that have adopted the practice of crowdsourced security through bug bounties and other practices that to go and bring the ban-hammer down now would be very just offbeat with kind of the practices that they've had. But then again, as soon as we start to see, more acts of cyber crime, I guess, for lack of a better term, or even state actors that are actually doing more than just espionage, but are actually starting to break things, that appetite could change very quickly within the government. And we're definitely at a point in our history where threats via the internet are definitely profound or prevalent, and are also starting to kind of shake up into our political system quite a bit. So I don't know. I think that this is a good first step. It's a way for the industry to regulate itself, for lack of a better term. But yeah, I think that the invitation that Casey and Amit are putting out to the community to say, look, work with us. Let's get a joint effort where this benefits everyone, whether you use BugCrowd or HackerOne or Synac or any of the other providers that are starting to pop up in the crowdsourced security space. This is just good for research in general, and I for one am very enthusiastic about that, because hopefully it'll change a lot of older companies' views on this, like Oracle, for example, right? Traditionally has had a really bad look at security research. When they start to see other companies like HP come out and say, hey, look, we're doing security research on our printers with crowdsourced security, and here's the legal guidance that we're putting behind it that follows suit with this sort of thing. Maybe it'll put positive pressure on other companies to actually allow for security research. Who knows? What are your thoughts on this? I mean, you kind of come at it from the other side, with Signal Sciences, you're protecting companies, which is super awesome, because now if people are trying to do testing and you're protecting them, it's like you're showing your value right away. But as someone that does research yourself, whether it's, tooling around with LamHack, for example, what are your feelings on this situation, especially like the climate that we live in today?
Well, yeah, I guess that's, coming more from the application developer side of the house. And we're thinking, when will developers land themselves in jail for security vulnerabilities that they wrote? That's a question I've heard posed many times at some developer-centric type conferences and events over the last several years. And I mean, the feeling is that it's coming. We don't know when. We don't know what will be the precipitating event that makes that happen. But there will be some outside regulation coming in, and more than likely, it's going to be coming from exactly those sources that you mentioned, right? It's like state actors or other type of things were able to, exercise some sort of vulnerability or to an exploit that was put there, but it was due to developer carelessness or lack of testing or whatever that it was. And then someone's going to land in jail. So we're unsure where all that's going to go, and that's that one side. And the other side is adequate testing and giving people protection whenever they actually are reporting bugs to you. I think that's another side of it. I just think we're in an interesting time in our industry, and I am excited that and hopeful that maybe we can, as you mentioned, self-regulate. And I think as kind of they're trying to do. But we'll see. I wish I could look through the crystal ball and see that, but there is a perception that there is something coming.
And the individual I was thinking of, by the way, before we jump to another story, was Malware Tech, who's been in prison. They're not in prison, but is basically being kept for trial here in the U.S. Related to his efforts in destroying or taking down WannaCry, and then being purportedly accused of having actually written it himself, or being part of writing it. So I think other than that one case, which was actually very, it's timely, right? Because it happened during DEF CON last year that he was arrested on his flight back. But other than that, I don't know of many other cases where it's federal government going after individuals and not civil cases. Like I see more civil situations where companies will like sue to basically keep a talk from happening because the research is potentially damaging to their company. So yeah, I don't know. I think that for the most part, we're starting to see an appetite for open source or even crowdsourced security of different kinds. And I refer to open source as in like the Google bounty that they're paying for open source projects when you fix bugs in open source code when the actual owner of that code doesn't fix them themselves. So yeah, all good in my eyes, and hopefully it ends well for us, because if it doesn't, then I don't know.
We're gonna have some problems.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. So speaking of having problems, everything is not all fun and games when it comes to playing Fortnite, because apparently they're teaching people to sideload things onto Android devices because they want to ditch the 30% cost in the Google Play Store. Do you play Fortnite at all? Did you catch any of this?
I don't know. Tell us more.
So Fortnite is a fairly popular game. I don't play it myself, but I know a number of people who do. That is made by Epic Games, and so it's kind of like a pseudo Minecraft meets like first-person shooter, well, third-person, I guess, like over the shoulder. But technicalities aside, basically what has happened here is rather than offering their Fortnite available on Android through the Play Store, which for every purchase that's made in the application is a 30% cut straight to Google, they decided, you know what, we're going to forego all of that and just teach people how to sideload Fortnite onto their Google device or their Android device, which in my mind is like, you as a company, I feel like they're taking on a lot of maybe legal responsibility for what could potentially happen to that device now that there's like, oh yeah, here's how you sideload things. And we're not necessarily going to tell you why that's bad. We just want you to sideload it, or how to actually turn back things after you've actually made the modifications so that you can go ahead and actually sideload things. I don't know. This feels like a penny wise and a dollar foolish on the part of Epic Games, because there's a lot of security that comes out of the Google Play Store. What were your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, kind of avoiding the ecosystem. I mean, this even goes back to our guest, that we just had on, right? It's like there is a certain amount of security that you get from baking in, and amount of trust that that users have for kind of using the application stores and stuff like that. So I know as a buyer, like I rather prefer to just have the thing that I can install, in the Play Store or the App Store or whatever, right? It's like that's preferred, and but that's a consumer's point of view. But then as a kind of from kind of industry background, knowing like all that stuff gets scanned, gets looked at, there is some level of rigor, that gets put into getting stuff there. So yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, in my eyes, I think what's going to ultimately end up happening as a result of this is there's going to be Fortnite malware on Android devices everywhere. Let's just put it that way. Like that's my 2018 prediction.
Let's give it till 2019.
Not going to be good.
We'll give it till 2019.
You're right. It is August. I guess we could give it a few months.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Yep. All right.
All right, exactly. Now that we're in 2019, welcome to your Fortnite malware. Or it's coming in a fortnight. I don't know. We could have lots of jokes around that. I did want to kind of round out, though, with this article on the cost of JavaScript. This article was actually really, really good. I don't know. How much of this did you get a chance to read? Because there's a lot of like good charts and stuff in there too, James.
Yeah, I was scanning it. I didn't get all the way through this one. But I think it's a... we often will kind of lean towards using JavaScript. Sometimes there's a big hit to it, right?
Yeah, in this case, it shows, kind of processing on mobile devices as the onus for the article, right? Because at the end of the day, if you have like an iPhone 7, you're probably in pretty good shape. But if you have, say, like, I don't know, they have an Alcatel 1X or a Samsung S7 on here. The cost in terms of like load times and usability times is up to 32 seconds slower And even for like a Moto G4, it's 9 seconds slower than say an iPhone X or an iPhone 8. And to that end, it brings out a really good article and a really good point about, minification. Do you really need it? Processes that you can go through or steps that you can go through to actually take care of some of your heavy or more bloated applications. But yeah, the world is being eaten alive by JavaScript, whether it's React Native or Electron or all these other things that are basically interpreters for JavaScript. And this article brings to light some serious concerns, both as a developer and as a security practitioner, on usability and thinking about the audience of the people that you're trying to deliver these things to. So yeah, this one I thought it was good.
Yeah, you automatically think, well, hey, we're doing a bad thing with all this Bitcoin mining that's going on. We're going to destroy the earth through that. But no, it's actually JavaScript.
Well, it is funny because both we are like literally killing the earth. It's now 86 in my office right now, which is not fun. But at the same time, it's one of those situations where I think there was, I don't know, a few episodes ago, there was a link that we never talked about that has a really good white paper on computational speed for different languages, whether it's interpreted or compiled, excuse me, for like JavaScript, Python, Perl, C, C++. And it talks about power consumption as one of them. Believe it or not, JavaScript's power consumption is actually like really, really low. But what it ends up being is just, everybody takes all of their JavaScript and just shoves it into the front end load time so that once the app loads, it's easy to use. But before that, good luck. Twitter on your computer, actually, believe it or not, is a really good example, right? If you're sitting there and you're watching like your notifications or your timeline, and then you look at like your power utilization and your memory utilization, it's incredible. Like I turn it off when I sit here and podcast, because between Slack and Google Chrome for just like 3 tabs, plus Twitter is the culprit almost every time for slow everything. So I don't know. I think we just have to get back to a point where efficiency is key. I'm sure Galen would appreciate that, given how his first computer only had 64 kilobytes. Like we can do better. Efficiency should be a thing.
Yep.
Now, did you happen to look at the comic for this week? So number 3 under food for thought.
No, I was watching that GitHub. I will say the GitHub article from Neil was really good too. Just we don't have to like get into it too much, but I thought that was a great piece, and I think it shows how we should sort of think of treating accounts and talk about multi-factor, and has just a lot of good background history in it. So if people are interested in that layer, like that's a good article. I'm glad you put that one in there. The comic, let's just check it out.
Before we actually get to the comic, you've now reminded me that I totally forgot about learning and tools. So that was the story.
I know we jumped around on this one. Sorry.
No apology necessary. That was all me. So that was story number 2 under learning and tools. Actually, it's a GitHub best practices guide for account security and recoverability. So it goes through all sorts of goodness when it comes to setting up an authenticator app, security keys, turning off SMS delivery if that's in your threat model and something that you're concerned about, and other ways of securing your account. I myself recently set up a GitHub company account or organization, just for fun and trying out some different things. And one of the things you can do on there, which is really nice, is everybody that has the right to like authorize pull requests or push code into the repository must have 2-factor authentication set up, which I was like, sweet, that would have helped so many people like weeks ago with Gen2 and like all the other companies or, organizations that are just getting owned because no 2-factor authentication and password reuse. So yeah, this was a good article. Did you check out Infer, by the way? This is more of a developer tool, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was checking that out just before the call. That looks really cool. It's like it's I don't know. It kind of blends the lines of what we use for like linters and being able to like run kind of that debugging step before we're able to ship that, and seeing like what. Where we might have injection. So it kind of fits in that static code analysis place, right? But what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, being free open source software, I'm always game for including something else as part of my automated tool chain if I can.
Yep.
In doing that, static analysis, looking for potential bugs, including things such as crashes, poor performance, null pointers and dereferences, as well as memory leaks, coding conventions, things like that. So that's the crossover with linting that you have there. Even unavailable APIs, right? Like seeing if it can traverse the code to say, hey, that API that you wrote isn't actually working. I thought that was pretty cool. It's got Android and Java, C, C++, and iOS / Objective-C. So to that end, I thought it was cool. It's supported by a number of organizations such as Amazon and Facebook, Mozilla, etc., and free and open source. So hey,
Right.
pretty awesome in general.
Yep. And it looks like it has a really nice command line interface for it, so you can just sort of tie it into whatever your CI/CD pipelines are, and should be cheap and easy to get running. So, I'm always for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right? It's like one more thing that I can throw in as part of my test suite that I can just cool, dump out some more stuff and see what happens. It also can help you hold some tools accountable to say, you're finding all this weird stuff and infers finding maybe just a few of those. What's going on here? The other one I did want to mention, though, in the learning and tools section is under story number 1 for learning and tool, or excuse me, story number 3 for learning and tools. Correction. Burp Suite Pro is on its month of Burp Prawn because in this case they are actually in the process of releasing out a major overhaul or major update coming at the end of this month for Burp Suite Pro. So it's the first time that they've done this in 2 years. Have you been following any of these articles at all? I've been looking at this closely and drooling just a little bit, I'm going to admit.
Okay, that's good. I'm a Burp user. I really like Burp, but I haven't been following the articles. But I am now. I'm excited about this. I wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't on my radar that they were putting out a new version. So I'm excited for this.
Well, you're going to be very happy to hear that they have a new crawler that they're putting out that includes detecting changes in application state, as well as crawling volatile content, multiple logins, and automatic session handling. And that's just through the 6th. So that's through today that we have those articles. We still have the rest of the month of August to sit here and be give me the update, please.
That's really good. I mean, that's a good. Man, I'm excited now. This month is going to be a good month for watching that.
Now, if they come out with a dark theme mode, I'm just straight up throwing my money at them, right? I'm due for my renewal here by mid-month, and I'm kind of sitting on this watching to see okay, is the pricing model going to change? Maybe I should renew sooner, but at the same time, if they come out with a dark theme, I'm just throwing money at them, right? I'm just going to package it up and throw it. So back to the comic, though, since I was going to skip ahead to everything else. As you might see in this week's comic from Commit Strip, it is the most exciting game. So it's got our faithful friends, the developer, the UI UX, and the sysadmin, all sitting around a computer looking at their favorite JavaScript library. I won't spoil it for you, but I hope you enjoy it. And with that, thank you for joining us for another. Let me start that over. Thank you for joining us for another week of another wicked awesome episode of Application Security Weekly. I totally botched that ending, but in the meantime, remember to git, commit, and stay classy.